Okay, let's get into this. When you read the news,
Yeah.
right, you often hear about Congress being slow, gridlocked,
Yeah.
maybe even failing to act.
Yeah, it's usually painted as, well, the weakest branch, always reacting to the president or the Supreme Court.
Exactly. But what if that whole story is kind of misleading? What if Congress actually has this huge, almost hidden set of powers? Tools designed not just to make laws, but to really push back against the president and the courts. That's where it gets interesting. We're doing a deep dive today into Josh Chafetz's book, Congress's Constitution, Legislative Authority and the Separation of Powers. And we're going way beyond just a quick summary.
That's right. And discover a new in-depth approach to book coverage with this extended summary. Unlike our previous review, which offers a focus analysis, this feature delivers a comprehensive overview tracing the intellectual roots, key arguments, and real-world impact of the subject. So if you appreciate this expanded format, this deeper dive, and find it helpful, please let us know. Your feedback is really going to help shape future content.
Absolutely. And just so you know, you are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM, designed for deeper, more dynamic book summaries.
Okay, so our mission today, we're really digging into the constitutional framework Chafetz lays out in this book. He argues Congress has 6 distinct powers. 3 are hard, sort of coercive powers.
Right.
And 3 are more protective, he calls them soft powers. And by using these, Congress really asserts its authority, its influence, in ways that go far beyond just, passing legislation. It's much more active.
So to really grasp what the book's arguing, we first need to understand the setting, the context.
Exactly. The author carefully sets the scene, the whole institutional background of the U.S. federal government. He traces how legislative power developed chronologically, really, from colonial times right up to today.
It makes it clear that Congress isn't just defined by the words in the Constitution.
No, not at all. It's shaped by literally centuries of institutional push and pull, constant struggle.
And what I find fascinating is how Chafetz frames these struggles. He doesn't just look at American history in isolation.
Right.
He connects American legislative power back to this bigger history of constitutionalism, parliamentary tactics.
Right.
Especially drawing lines between old conflicts in England and the separation of powers battles we see here.
Like the fights with the Stuart monarchy.
Precisely. If you want to understand why an American congressional committee demands documents or testimony today, Chafetz says, look back at Parliament battling the king. Those precedents demanding information, controlling the money for wars, they're baked into the American system. They're foundational.
That's such a crucial point. And it means the main characters in this book aren't really individual politicians.
Right.
They're the institutions themselves. Congress, the president, the executive agencies, the courts. And they're defined by what they do institutionally, debating, issuing subpoenas, impeaching, confirming nominees. The whole narrative is one of constant rivalry. It's almost a zero-sum game sometimes, where if Congress gains ground, the executive often loses some.
And the way it's written, this sort of documentary style, makes it really compelling, I think. It's a linear history, pretty objective, mixed with sharp legal analysis.
Yeah, it avoids getting bogged down in why someone did something, the deep intent.
Right. It focuses on the how. If Congress has a power, how does it actually work? When has it been used effectively? It's all about the mechanics, the machinery of institutional power.
And that focus on mechanics brings us right to this arsenal of powers. The book groups them, as we said, into 6 categories. Let's start with the first 3, the hard powers. These are the direct coercive tools Congress uses to, well, force its will on the other branches.
Okay, first up, and maybe the most obvious one, but also incredibly powerful, the power of the purse.
Classic.
The book goes into detail on how Congress controls all federal spending, the appropriations process. But it stresses this isn't just about passing the annual budget. It's much more surgical than that.
How so?
Congress uses really specific conditions, spending riders or even line item cuts, to defund things they don't like, to reorganize agencies, sometimes even to forbid specific executive actions altogether.
Ah, okay.
So for anyone listening, the real insight here is seeing how Congress uses discretionary funding as leverage. They might say, threaten to zero out the budget for some small but vital program.
Right.
Unless they get a policy change they want somewhere else, it's basically micromanagement to the checkbook, financial coercion.
Precisely. Okay, so that's the purse. The second hard power revolves around personnel.
This isn't just the big confirmation battles you see on TV, like for the Supreme Court or major cabinet secretaries, though those are part of it.
It's broader than that.
Much broader. The book points out this power to confirm or reject applies to literally thousands of top officials, executives, judges, ambassadors,
Mm.
and just the threat of a confirmation fight, the possibility of rejection, shapes who the president even dares to nominate in the first place. It influences staffing decisions long before a name is public.
And that's before we even get to impeachment.
Right, impeachment. Even if it doesn't lead to removal from office, the process itself is this massive, coercive political weapon. It can completely derail an administration's agenda, just suck up all the oxygen and political capital.
Definitely. Okay, so personnel. What's the third hard power?
The contempt power. This is Congress's authority to enforce its demands for information. Think subpoenas against people who refuse to cooperate, whether they're private citizens or executive branch officials.
Now, most people probably think this just means Congress refers someone to the Justice Department for prosecution if they defy a subpoena.
That's the statutory contempt route. But the book emphasizes something more fundamental. Congress has inherent contempt power.
Inherent. What does that mean, practically?
It means, in theory, Congress itself can order its sergeant-at-arms to arrest and detain someone until they comply with the subpoena.
Cool.
No courts, no Justice Department needed initially. Now, it's very rarely used today, that inherent power, but it exists. It's the ultimate non-judicial check, a direct coercive tool that bypasses the other two branches entirely in a head-to-head confrontation.
Okay, so those are the hard powers: personnel, contempt. Pretty forceful tools.
Yep.
But Chafetz argues Congress needs more than just coercion to function effectively.
Right.
So the book then shifts to the three soft powers. These are more about protecting Congress's own autonomy, its ability to operate independently without outside interference. They shield Congress.
And the first of these soft powers is maybe the most well-known constitutional privilege,
Yeah.
the freedom of speech and debate.
So speech or debate clause, yeah.
Basically, it means members of Congress can't be legally questioned anywhere else, not in court, not by the executive branch, for anything they say or do as part of their legislative duties. Speeches, votes, committee work. The book really stresses how vital this shield is. It allows members to take politically risky votes, to ask tough questions during oversight hearings, to just have robust debates without fearing that the president or some private group is going to sue them or launch an investigation in retaliation.
It protects the deliberative space.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next soft power?
Internal discipline. Now, this might sound a bit internal, maybe less exciting than budget fights.
Like House Rules and Ethics Committees.
Exactly. Things like censure, reprimands, even expulsion. But the book argues this internal policing has a crucial external function.
How so?
Well, Congress needs to maintain its own institutional integrity. If it's seen as corrupt or unable to hold its own members accountable for bad behavior, its moral authority to challenge the president, to demand accountability from the executive branch, is seriously weakened. Credibility matters.
That makes sense. You can't credibly investigate the White House if your own house is obviously a mess. Okay, third soft power.
This is cameral rulemaking. And here's where the book argues things get really interesting, looking at procedural rules.
Procedures, like how bills get debated.
Yes, but it's much more than that. The book shows that these internal rules, these procedures, aren't just boring administrative details. They are actual levers of power, real weapons in interbranch conflict.
Give me an example.
Okay, take the blue slip. This is mostly relevant for federal judicial nominations, especially at the district court level.
Right, I've heard of that.
It's basically a tradition, a Senate rule, where the senators from the state where the judge would serve get sent a blue slip of paper. If just one of them refuses to return it.
It can kill the nomination?
Often, yes, or at least delay it significantly. That simple procedural courtesy grants enormous power to individual senators to influence the judiciary in their state, often completely outside of a majority vote. It asserts congressional control over judicial personnel.
Wow, okay. That's a procedural rule acting as a real check.
Exactly. Or think about the constitutional rule that all bills for raising revenue have to start in the House of Representatives, the origination clause.
That's another procedural rule baked into this Constitution itself. It gives the House unique leverage over tax and spending policy, preventing the president or even the Senate from just dictating the terms of fiscal policy from the start. It's about controlling the agenda through procedure.
Okay, I see how these rules aren't just internal housekeeping. They shape the power dynamics.
Precisely.
All right, let's just pause here for a brief mindful moment. Remember that you can find more in-depth book analysis, summaries, and critiques, inspiring reflection and rational thought on the Mindful Moments. That's our YouTube channel.
Good reminder.
So, pulling these 6 powers together, the 3 hard, the 3 soft, what's the big picture message from Chafetz? It really comes down to this. Congressional power is way more flexible, far-reaching, and frankly, often misunderstood than the popular narrative suggests.
Yeah.
The balance of power between Congress, the president, and the judiciary isn't static. It's constantly shifting, defined by which institution is willing and able to actually use these tools, these mechanisms of control and autonomy at any given time. And the book really drives this home by looking at actual historical examples, major events where these powers were clearly deployed.
Like what?
Well, the power of the purse, you see that in those huge high-stakes budget fights we talked about, sometimes leading to government shutdowns, right? That's Congress flexing its financial muscle.
Okay.
Or the threat of impeachment, or even just aggressive congressional investigations using subpoenas, backed up by that contempt power. The book shows how these can totally stall executive actions, force the release of sensitive documents, really put the brakes on a presidency.
Yeah, it's not just recent history either, is it?
Not at all. Chafetz points to things like battles over arms treaties in the 20th century, where the Senate asserted its role. And he even goes back, as we mentioned, to those historical roots, like Parliament versus the Stuart Kings, to show this deep history of legislative bodies using their unique tools to push back against executive power. Congress's strength comes from this deep institutional toolkit.
So, okay, this is a fascinating framework from a legal and historical perspective. But why should someone listening right now really care about understanding these 6 powers?
Because when you watch the news today, whether it's a fight over funding for the border wall, or a really contentious Supreme Court confirmation hearing, or a House committee issuing subpoenas for presidential emails, you are literally watching these 6 hard and soft powers in action. That's what's happening beneath the surface headlines. This book basically gives you the map, the decoder ring. It provides the essential knowledge of the institutional weapons being used right now in the biggest political fights. It helps you understand how the system actually works or sometimes doesn't work.
And it's worth noting, this isn't just some fringe theory. Chafetz's framework is pretty influential.
Absolutely.
The book is cited widely in legal scholarship and political science. It shows up in major law reviews, government journals. That confirms its analytical weight, its importance for really understanding American government. It's a serious contribution.
It really is. Okay, so that brings us to our final thought, something for you to chew on after listening. Considering all 6 of these powers we've discussed, you've got the big, visible, coercive ones like the power of the purse, and then you have the quieter, maybe more subtle, autonomy-protecting ones like camera rulemaking, the blue slips. Which single tool do you think is the most potent and maybe the least understood? Check on presidential power today. Is it the money? Is it the procedures? Something else?
That's a good question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. And if you want to dive even deeper, click the link on screen for the in-depth book critique. And of course, subscribe, share, maybe purchase the book via the link, and keep thinking rationally.
And don't forget to see the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.